Hello everyone, welcome back to YK Reviews. We're getting set for the October tier ranking video, so let's get into it here. So with the month of October, we reviewed a ton of horror movie, a ton of franchises. Playlists are all on the channel here, so there is a ton to go over, so let's just get straight into it here as we do a tier ranking of all the movies and the shows here. So right off the bat, we're just going to start off with Amsterdam, and I'll be honest, just remembering this movie, remembering what happened in this movie, remember the dozing off in this movie, I feel like this movie was pretty bland. I'll be honest, like for me, I gotta give this movie an F. Like it was not that great. The plot and the concept was great and had a lot of potential, but then the execution, the editing, the cutting, just it was very, very boring for me. So I'd have to give that an F. And next up on the list is Black Adam. For me, I enjoyed this movie. It was very fun. It was enjoyable. The Rock did have a great performance in it. A little bit of it was holding back. I loved the JSA and their performances, the fight between Black Adam and Justice Society. So I had a fun time with this movie. It was a typical superhero type movie, so nothing really like stood out. But for me, I'm gonna give this movie a B+. Just because of like the post-credit scene there, and if you haven't seen it, I am gonna spoil it. So with the post-credit scene with Superman showing up, Henry Cavill, and then a couple of days later confirming that he is back, there's so much news going about him leaving The Witcher from Netflix to come back to the DC. It's just such exciting times, so that really bumps it up for me. But in terms of the actual movie in itself, it's fun and enjoyable, but it's sort of like those generic superhero movies there. So next up on the list is we've got The Bride of Chucky, a good return to the Chucky series, because you've got Child's Play 1, 2 and 3, and then after that it returns back to Chucky, so you've got The Bride of Chucky. And with this one, I had a fun time with it. I liked the potential and the plot in itself was fun, but some of the scenes that they came up with and the decisions that they made, like Chucky getting tickled, really infuriated me. I don't want to see Chucky getting tickled, and even they do that in a TV show, and it just frustrates me so much because that's not what a slasher icon should be. Like, you won't see Michael Myers getting tickled, Freddy, Jason, like you'll never see them in a tickle fight. So just to see Chucky like that, and then the scenes of them having their romantic time in the motel, so scenes like that were just holding me back. But there were some good lines in there with Tiffany yelling at Chucky about Martha Stewart and Chucky's reaction to it. So I really enjoyed some of the scenes there. So for me, with Bride of Chucky, I'm gonna have to put this on a C for me, a C+ for me. And sorry, out of like the movies to Amsterdam, I'm gonna give that a 3 out of 10, just because Robert De Niro's character, Christian Bale's character, their performances were great, but everything else was just bland. So Amsterdam is a 3 out of 10. Black Adam for me would be a 7 out of 10. I had a fun time with it. And with Bride of Chucky, I'm going to give that a solid 7.5 out of 10. And next up on the list is the reboot Child's Play movie, Child's Play 2019. This, I feel like they did a good concept with it. There was a nice little twist with like what they went with. The characters and the actors and the casts that portrayed everybody was a fun bunch. The thing that bugged me with this movie was the design of Chucky. I felt like he just looked way off, like completely night and day to like Chucky, Charles Lee Ray's Chucky. And even the concept of it being an AI, I really liked that concept, and the kills were fantastic in this movie. So it wasn't a bad reboot, and if they were to continue this franchise in that direction with these reboots, I honestly wouldn't mind it. I would get excited with these types of movies. So for me, for Child's Play 2019, I'm gonna have to give this a C. I would say a 7 out of 10 overall, and the third act was just wacky and crazy. I had a fun time with the third act, so yeah, it would be a C for me. And next up on the list is we've got Child's Play 2. I'm gonna put this right now as a triple plus S tier, out of the wall best movie of the franchise in my personal opinion. I loved Child's Play 2. It was such a fantastic sequel. The kills, the one-liners, the characters that they introduced with Kyle and Andy, and the toy factory scene in the third act, and the brutality that Chucky goes through. This is my favorite Child's Play Chucky movie in the whole franchise, and it's a fantastic sequel. I won't highly recommend this enough. Watch Child's Play 2 after watching Child's Play 1. Those two movies just fantastic, and I can't say enough good things about Child's Play 2, so this one is high up there, a triple plus S tiers, 5-star for me, and this is, in my personal opinion, a 10 out of 10, a perfect sequel. And then next up on the list, you've got Child's Play, the original one. Now for me, I'm also going to put this the same level. Like, Child's Play 1 and Child's Play 2 are hands down two of the best like horror movies in the franchise, along with like other horror movies out there too. For me though, in terms of this month and like the movies that I reviewed, these two are two of my favorite movies of this month, and I loved what they did. I love the introduction to Chucky. I love like the opening sequences in Child's Play 1, where you've just got Charles Lee Ray getting chased by like the detective Mike Norris, doing his little voodoo spell, coming back to life, him versus Andy at the end, and like the final act, the sequences, getting burnt, getting shot, getting like beheaded, just everything about these two Child Play movies was so fantastic. Once again, for me, this is a 10 out of 10. Child's Play 1, Child's Play 2, 10 out of 10 for me, hands down. And next up on the list, we've got, continuing with the Chucky theme, we've got the Chucky TV show. And for me, I am having such a fun time with this show. It is a fantastic season and a fantastic show, a great adaptation to like the Child's Play Chucky series franchise in itself. The continuation, like in my review, I didn't give out any spoilers or anything like that, and with this one I won't give out any spoilers either for it, but I love the continuation, the characters that they bring, the storyline each episode to each episode. Chucky, as I mentioned in the review, this is the best Chucky's been in such a long time, and I am loving every second of it. This is just for season 1, and I'm having such a fun time, and the human characters, Jake, Devon, Lexi, Junior, like these 4 characters are just fun, bouncing off of one another. They're having a great time, so I am loving this show. However, for me, Chucky season 1 overall, I'm giving this an A. I'm gonna give it like a 9 out of 10, because also another thing that's holding it back too is the flashback scenes. Like, you're bringing up the Charles Lee Ray's backstory and his history, which I loved, but in certain flashback scenes it's just very obvious with the dubbing and like the sequences, having it in its place in the certain scene of the episode just didn't fit that well. So that's the only thing holding it back for me. So for me, the Chucky's first season, I'm definitely putting it as an A, but for me I'd have to give it like a 8.5 out of 10, or 9, 8.5 to 9 out of 10 for this. And the next one on the list is Chucky once again. We've got The Cult of Chucky, which is basically the final movie of the official franchise, and I had such a fun time with this one. I love the dynamic that they had based on like a mental institution, a psychiatric ward place. Nika from the previous movie is being brought back. You've got like the post-credit scene, which was fun to watch. Tiffany is getting involved, and the only little issue that I had with it was the explanation of how Chucky is able to like pass on his soul to like different characters and different dolls. So for me, that's holding it back just ever so slightly. So for me, with Cult of Chucky, I'm gonna have to give this one a B, because even the kills in this movie too were just fantastic. Like, I loved some of the kills in this. There's one in particular with the glass coming down, like killing this person off, and you've got the one character, I completely forgot her name now, but you just find like the hand of the doll just shoved in her mouth. Just really gory kills. So I had a fun time with this one. So as we're continuing with the Chucky one, I'm going to get straight back to like the predecessor of this movie. You've got The Curse of Chucky, and for me, I had a fun time with this movie, but the only thing is that I had a fun time in the second half of this movie. The first half, it was very slow pacing, sort of like a whodunit type movie, even though you know it's Chucky. So I had like a really mixed time with this movie. It was fun, it was entertaining, the third act in particular, Chucky's reveal, and I loved the stitching across his face with Chucky. Like, he was really fun and entertaining, but the build up throughout the movie in terms of like the first act, the second act, the whodunit type, even the characters, the human characters, just wasn't that fun for me. So it was very like slow and dragging on, and it wasn't until Chucky versus Nika is when it really picks up. And I like the little backstory of like why he went after this family. So for me, when it comes to like Curse of Chucky, I'm gonna put this as a C minus, and for me it's gonna be a 7 out of 10, because the third act and even the kills Chucky did produce were really brutal, and I loved the kills. So the third act along with the kills just made up for the movie compared to like the slow build up. And so next up on the list, we've got The Curse of Bridge Hollow. I did a shorts about it and it's on Netflix. For me, I don't know what I was expecting. I thought it would be a fun like horror movie, not too scary or anything like that, but a fun family like Netflix type horror movie. But instead, like the plot of the movie, like the characters that we're bringing in, and even like the explanation of like why Marlon Wayne's character does not like Halloween, just felt kind of like held back and not that great of an explanation. So for me, when it comes to like The Curse of Bridge Hollow, I'm gonna have to give this a D. It's a fun family movie. You'll have a good time with it if you're watching it with your kids, watching it with your family on Halloween, but it's just not got that rewatchable factor whatsoever. So I'm gonna have to give this a D, and I'm probably gonna give this a 6 out of 10 for me. And so next up on the list is we've got Halloween 1978, the original Halloween, and John Carpenter's take on Michael Myers, on Laurie Strode, on this whole like movie in itself. As I mentioned in the review in itself, is that you have a fantastic time with Michael Myers throughout the movie. There's a very like slow build up to the movie. Michael doesn't actually do much killing as in the first like hour or so, but once he does start doing it, it's fantastic to watch. My favorite kill in like the whole franchise, and this is in my top 5, is when he killed Bob, just putting that knife right through the wall. So it was a fantastic like sequences, fantastic kills, but the build up, like having Michael Myers do drive-by spying on Laurie, like him in like the garden just looking at her, looking in through the school, just really great build up to Michael Myers. And the opening sequences too is like you see from the killer's eyes him stabbing this female, coming to find out it's a child, stabbing his sister. Just really fantastic. So for me, when it comes to like the first Halloween, I'm putting this as like an up there with Child's Play 1 and Child's Play 2. This is a fantastic horror movie, and one of my favorite horror movies. I can watch this every Halloween. It's got such a rewatchable factor and it never gets old. So Halloween, the original one, I'm giving this a 10 out of 10. It's a perfect introduction to Michael Myers, a perfect introduction to the Halloween franchise. And so next up on the list, we're continuing the Halloween train now, is we've got Halloween 2018. And for me, like in my thumbnail, I'm literally so excited and happy. I really loved this movie. It was such a brilliant like reintroduction to like Michael Myers, John Carpenter, Laurie Strode. Like, I loved what they did with this. It's a direct sequel to the original movie, and I loved where they went with the storyline. Some of the sequences and some of the scenes held it back ever so slightly, but it doesn't take away from what a fantastic movie this is. So Halloween 2018, for me, I'm putting this as like an A in my personal opinion. It's really fantastic. I know the controversy with the Doctor and that twist and everything like that, but I like the continuation of like Michael Myers is just pure evil, kills whoever he wants, and it's doesn't have that like sibling effect. Like it's not like Michael Myers escaped from like prison or escaped from like the prison bus, went to chase after Laurie. No, she was just in his path. So I really liked that, what they did with that. And the mask too is my second favorite mask, because I have not mentioned it. In Halloween 1 is my favorite mask of all time, Michael Myers mask, but Halloween 2018, that old weathered down looking mask, just fantastic. So Halloween 2018 goes up there as like an A for me, and a 9 out of 10. And so next up on the list is we have got Halloween 2, the direct sequel to Halloween 1 1978, but not a continuation timeline for Halloween 2018. So with Halloween 2, they bump up the goriness, they bump up like the physicality and the violence, and for me, I thoroughly enjoyed that. I enjoyed like what they did. I loved it, like Loomis. I never mentioned Loomis in the Halloween 1 movie, but Loomis is a fantastic character. Like Donald Pleasence's performances in Dr. Loomis made the movie. Like in the original one, he's just hyping up Michael, throwing out brilliant lines about Michael Myers, and he does that continuously in Halloween 2. Dr. Loomis did a fantastic job throughout the whole Halloween franchise, but with Halloween 2, the thing that holds it back for me ever so slightly is that the reveal was just a random reveal thrown in there, where it's like Nurse Miriam revealing that Laurie and Michael are like related. It was just sort of like thrown in there, but I really liked what they did with this movie. But Laurie Strode also just felt like a side character too in this. So it was Michael's just like focusing on just killing people in the hospital, and then you've got that final act with Laurie versus Michael versus Dr. Loomis. Fantastic sequences. So for me with Halloween 2, I'm putting this on, I have to put this as a B. I was going to say a B plus, just because of like some of the scenes and the reveal and the side character that Laurie ended up becoming, even though she just got like a slit to the arm in the previous movie. But for me, a very solid sequel, one that I definitely enjoyed. So it's going up there as a B plus, and for me a 8 out of 10. And next up on the list is Halloween 3, the one without Michael Myers. And for me, I know I criticized this movie a lot in my initial review, and for me, it's got a rewatchable factor, I won't lie, but for me, like the plot just didn't make sense in terms of like the third act and like what happened there. The main lead, Don Chalice, just wasn't as likable or anything like that. So it's a fun movie. I know it's a guilty pleasure for a lot of people, but because it's just associated to like the Halloween name in the franchise, just felt so out of place. So for me, I'm gonna have to give this movie Halloween 3 a C minus and a 7 out of 10. For me, I'm being generous with that because, like I said, it's got a rewatchable factor. If this wasn't associated to Halloween, it would have been higher up and I would have had more of a fun time with it. But after watching Halloween 1, Halloween 2, and then going to Halloween 3, just kind of like a dip in the quality for me. And then next up on the list is you've got Halloween 5, and for me, Halloween 5, retconning what happened with Jamie in Halloween 4, killing off Rachel and bringing in Tina, just the decisions that they made with this was very frustrating for me. And also like the closing sequences too, where you've got like Jamie in the coffin, Michael taking off his mask, just and also what was frustrating too is you're seeing Michael in prison playing with his chains. Like I still haven't got over that, and I don't think I ever will. Just frustrating like decisions that they made. Like the end of Halloween 4 was brilliant. I loved Dr. Loomis' scream. I loved the look of Jamie holding that scissors, just wearing that clown costume. Just perfect ending to Halloween 4, and something that you could have built on, only to just retcon it, reverse it, go with the direction that they went with. So for Halloween 5, for me, I'm gonna have to give it a D. Killing off Rachel, the music that they played with the two police officers as well just baffled me. Tina was just very frustrating too. Michael playing with his chains, and then also in my review too with the cookie woman. I can't say it with a straight face. Dr. Loomis calling a cookie woman. It's going as a D for me, like probably a 5.5 out of 10. And then next up on the list is you've got Halloween 6. So in the previous Halloween movie, Halloween 5, you've got the introduction of the Man in Black, but no explanation whatsoever. You've got two versions of this, the theatrical cut and the producer's cut. For me, I prefer the theatrical cut because it didn't have Michael Myers standing there as a henchman. It didn't have Michael Myers having stones around him where he can't move. Just the whole like thorn cult thingy just didn't work for me. I hated like what they did. The kills in the theatrical cut were brilliant. Like the the Strode family, like Kara Strode's dad getting blown up after being electrocuted, Michael Myers killing off the mum too, just that brutality with the blood pouring on the white sheet. It was fun. Paul Rudd's performances was hit and miss, but then you've got like stuff like how you've got Jamie in the beginning of the movie being captured there and just ending up being what's the best word to use, being inseminated by Michael Myers, and Michael Myers being the father of her baby too. Just I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know why they went with that route, but both versions just aren't up there in terms of quality. So for 6, Halloween 6, I'm putting this as a D as well. 5 and 6 just dipped in quality so much. The kills were fantastic and funny, but just the decisions they made, Michael playing with his chains, Michael standing there as a henchman, just frustrating to watch. So both of them as a D, both a 5.5 out of 10 for me. And then as we continuously go with the Halloween franchise, because it looks like we've got a couple of Halloweens next up on the list, we're going to go back to back. So with Halloween Ends, the final confrontation between Michael versus Laurie, the final showdown, the end of the franchise, end of the movie. You've got built it up as like the last movie of the franchise, to then just spend 20 minutes with Michael versus Laurie. Like, I loved the opening sequences with Corey, and don't get me wrong, Corey was a fantastic character. The person who played Corey did a fantastic job. I loved his storyline, but it felt like you could have used that in a completely different movie. Maybe have that as like the next movie in the franchise when they do make it in the next 5 to 10 years. But having him the sole focus of the movie, it just baffles me, because this is the final movie of the franchise. He was not mentioned whatsoever in Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, nothing. So then you spend the whole movie focusing on him, having him have a fight with Michael Myers, a shoving match with Michael Myers, to then just, spoiler alert, stab himself in the neck and die off, and then have Michael versus Laurie. So this was so frustrating to watch. If this was any other movie in the franchise, it may have been a fun movie and a good movie. If Corey survived, if Michael didn't get shoved like a commoner or a muggle, for Harry Potter references there. But the fact that he just... So for me, because this would be higher up on the list if it wasn't the final showdown between Michael versus Laurie, the final movie in the franchise. So for me, I'm going to have to give this a D as well. I'm sorry, but for this to be the final movie and the direction that they went with was just so frustrating. The last 20 minutes was so satisfying with how Laurie versus Michael, and like the way Michael died, unmasking, slitting the throat of the arms. Fun things to watch. Perfect ending. But the first hour and 40 minutes or hour and a half, whatever it was, just... And the fact is, you don't even get to see Michael Myers until 43-44 minutes of the movie in itself. So this would have been higher up on the list, but like I mentioned, this is the last movie of the franchise. It's going as a D. And so next up on the list is we've got Halloween Kills, the predecessor to Halloween Ends. Halloween Kills follows up with Halloween Ends, and with Halloween Kills, for me, I had a fun time with the kills in this movie. The kills in this movie were brilliant, like him versus the firefighters, him having a lady shoot herself in the head, stabbing the guy in the eye, just having also the old man getting stabbed with multiple different knives. Just, Michael was at his best in this movie. I loved Michael Myers in this movie. But for me, the problem with this is that you spend a lot of time with the hospital sequences yelling "evil dies tonight," mobs acting just stupid and dumb, chasing after a man who does not look anything like Michael Myers whatsoever. So just like the hospital sequences killed it for me. Laurie once again becoming like a side character. Michael going on a killing spree was fantastic. There's even one sequences where the camera's just following him walking around, ended up killing different people. Just a fantastic direction of Michael Myers, and I loved that scene in particular. So for me, for Halloween Kills, I'm putting this as like a C. I'm putting this as a C plus, just because I loved Michael Myers, the way he like went on a rampage, killing every single person in his sights. But the hospital sequences, I get what they were trying to do, but it just didn't work for me. And then the ending of the movie too is that you've got Michael Myers versus this mob. They beat the living crap out of him. He gets shot. He gets hit with a bat. He gets stabbed, like something a normal person wouldn't do. But then, because like they're gonna make the next movie, he's sort of immortal. Basically, gets taken down all this brutality, to then just get up and just kill everybody like nothing. Just for me, sort of like diminishes Michael Myers a little bit. What you did in the Halloween Ends movie, the last 20 minutes of that movie, as I mentioned in the review, is have Halloween Kills, and then the ending of Halloween Kills should have been the ending of Halloween Ends. That's how you should have closed out the whole franchise, but the directions they went with. So for me, Halloween Kills goes as a C, and for me, probably as like a 7 out of 10. Now, before we go on to the next one, Halloween Resurrection, I've got to bring up Halloween H2O. It doesn't look like the H2O thumbnail got applied to this, so I do apologize about that. So for me, with Halloween H2O, I'm just going to quickly brush over it. For me, I had a fun time with this movie. I'm going to give that movie a B plus. For me, I loved like Laurie Strode in this movie, because I mentioned in Halloween 2018, fantastic movie, but they overplayed Laurie Strode, like being overprotective, paranoid, living in like the suburbs by us, living in just like by herself in this house, protected with like gates and guns and all that kind of stuff. But with H2O, that's the perfect sort of like paranoia, over the top, that they should have went with Laurie. So like Laurie in this movie was fantastic. I loved like the storyline that they did with it. LL Cool J was fantastic. And then you have that final sequences with like, for me, it's my hands down favorite battle between Michael versus Laurie. Only nitpicks that I do have with that one is the mask. Like the person that played Michael Myers just felt like he was very short. The eyes just revealed way too much. So the mask for that one just was very bad, and there was even a CGI mask in that, so that really held it back a bit. But H2O is definitely a great movie for me. But then what they do is that they retcon everything, because in H2O, Laurie chops his head off, Michael Myers' head that is, only for them to retcon it and go with Halloween Resurrection. And so for me, Halloween Resurrection, I'm just going to say this right now, Halloween Resurrection is an F. To have Busta Rhymes, karate, Michael Myers electrocuting his balls, doing a reality show in Michael Myers' house, just was a complete bombshell of a decision, and one that did not pay off. So Halloween Resurrection is F for me, up there with like one of the worst movies of the franchise. So for me, Halloween Resurrection, I'm giving that a 2 out of 10. And then next up on the list is we've got Rob Zombie's first Halloween movie, Halloween in 2007. And as I mentioned in the review, initially I was not a fan of this movie. However, after watching the movie again for this review, I really liked what Rob Zombie did with this movie. It was a fun new twist to Michael Myers, showing him as a child, showing that like serial killer backstory of like what you see in real life, day-to-day kind of things. I really liked what they did with that. And with Laurie Strode too, like her personality was more of a bubbly, fun personality in this movie, except some of the decisions Rob Zombie did. Like the first introduction you get of Laurie Strode is her talking to like her mum or adopted mum about sexual things, and you demonstrating that with a bagel. I don't understand that part. But in terms of like Michael Myers and the direction he went with, and the person who built Michael Myers, like I mean, so big and like a destructive person. So for me, when it comes to Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween, I'm gonna give this a C plus. I really enjoyed the movie. I think it was a good watch, a fun new twist. Definitely not up there with the original Halloween one, but Rob Zombie did a fantastic job with this. And for me, the next up on the list here is we've got Halloween 4. I loved the return of Michael Myers. Like after going from Halloween 3 with no Michael Myers, Halloween 4 Michael Myers, just a fantastic continuation of the Halloween franchise, a fantastic continuation of Michael Myers. Halloween 4 did such a fantastic job with Jamie and Dr. Loomis, and the direction that they went with plot wise, and even the ending too, as I mentioned earlier, like Jamie holding that scissors, Dr. Loomis screaming, Rachel was a fun addition, the kills were fantastic. I loved what they did with Halloween 4. So for me, Halloween 4 goes as like a B for me. It's a solid movie, and for me, I give this an 8 out of 10. It was a fantastic watch. So as we're continuing with like the Halloween train, I'm going to do the final one too. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. This for me is up there as an F for me, up there with Resurrection. These two are probably the worst movies in my personal opinion in the Halloween franchise. Like Rob Zombie got complete control of the movie, and just the decisions that he made, Dr. Loomis just being so unbearable in this movie, Laurie being unlikable in this movie. You've got these ambulance workers in the beginning of the movie talking about like dead corpses and like disgusting dialogue between the two of them, and the thing with the white horse I just did not get. So like I did not enjoy Rob Zombie 2. Had so much potential, but he just butchered the movie. So for me, Rob Zombie 2 is an F, a 4 out of 10 for me there. And before we get into the Hellraiser franchise, let's start off with The Seed of Chucky, the Chucky movie. Now for me, Seed of Chucky, the introduction to Glenn or Glenda had so much potential. I was genuinely excited about this movie, to then just come to see like what they did with it. Like the voice acting, just it was funny to me, but the decisions they made, having Chucky play with himself, the stupidity of like some of the sequences there, and just felt like a comedy, a parody of Chucky in itself. So for me, I'm gonna put Seed of Chucky as like a I'm putting Seed of Chucky as a D. Just it was funny at times, but just not funny in like the ha moment, funny in like what the hell am I watching moment. So yeah, Seed of Chucky is going as a D. So next up on the list is we've got Hellraiser 10 Judgment, and this is essentially the final movie of the franchise before the official reboot. And as I mentioned there, I really liked the Auditor in this. I loved like the heaven and the hell aspect, but for me the characters were just so bland and boring and kind of like predictable in terms of that. And like I had a fun time with it, but a lot of things I'm going to mention, like the rewatchable factor, just wasn't there for me for this one. So for Halloween 10 Judgment, it's going to go as a D for me. I'm going to give this like a 5 out of 10. I enjoyed the concept when it comes to like Pinhead and Auditor and like the new ways of torture, but just the characters that they used, the reveal at the end too, just disappointing for me. And so next up on the list is we've got the reboot of the Hellraiser movie, Hellraiser 2022, streaming on Hulu. And as I mentioned in the review, I had a fun time with this movie. It was such a step up in the right direction. The way that they moved about with like the configuration, the element configuration, I loved what they did with that. I loved the Leviathan being brought back. All of those aspects were fantastic to watch. However, the Cenobites not having enough leather, as weird as that sounds, Pinhead just not enough of a screen presence for me, so I felt like that held it back a bit. Some of the side characters too were just, you didn't connect well with them as much. I really liked Riley in this movie, and like I think she's like a fantastic Kirsty replacement. So there is lots of potential there, and I'm genuinely excited to see what the future holds with Hellraiser and like what they're gonna do. So for me, Hellraiser 2022 is gonna go up there as like a C plus for me, and probably a good 8 out of 10 for me there. And so next up on the list is we've got the sequel to the original Hellraiser, Hellraiser 2, and I loved this sequel in itself. I loved what they did with it. I loved like the hell aspect, and as I mentioned in the review, they've not brought it back. They did like elements in the reboot, but in the whole franchise, having the Leviathan there and like the hell aspect and like all of that was so fantastic. Dr. Channard is like the Cenobite, as I mentioned, looked like Ivan Ooze from Power Rangers Mighty Morphin movie. It was fantastic. Pinhead, Kirsty, it was just a really nice sequel of fun movie to watch. I loved how they kept to the lore of like Dr. Channard bringing Julia back as like the evil stepmom and all of that aspect there. My only nitpick with that is that with Dr. Channard as a Cenobite, he's able to kill Pinhead and his Cenobites so easily. Such a negative like thing to do, but I love like the twist at the end with Kirsty being dressed up as Julia. Really fun for me. So Hellraiser 2 is gonna go up there as for me a B plus, a solid sequel, a 7 out of 10, sorry, 8 out of 10 for me. I love this sequel, so it's definitely up there as a great one there. And next up on the list is we've got Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, and they've really upped the campiness in this movie by far. A fun movie, a fun watch. Not as bad as like the next like couple of movies like in the franchise, but for me the Cenobites were just laughable, like JP Monroe's Cenobites, Terry's Cenobite, like it was just ridiculous, but it was a fun watch for me, and I loved like the concept of like JP Monroe bringing in victims for Pinhead so that Pinhead can come to Earth. But the negative thing for me is that like you had a lot of like sequences with Joey and like finding her dad and like these flashbacks with Spencer and like the war and stuff like that. That just for me was the frustrating part of this movie, along with like some of the campiness in it. But for me with Hellraiser 3, it was a fun watch. I'm gonna give this like a C minus, probably a 7 out of 10 for me there. And next up on the list is we've got the direct sequel to Hellraiser 3 with Hellraiser 4 Bloodline, and I really had a fun time with this one too. I really enjoyed Pinhead going to space. I loved like the timeline of the past, present and future, the storyline that they did. I loved the showing the twins Cenobite transformation and like the backstory of the box and the bloodline of the Le Machons. It was a really fun aspect and element to this. I enjoyed this movie a lot, and probably the last good one that they had before like the next sequels of the psychological aspects, which we will definitely get to. So for me, Hellraiser 4 is for me like a B minus. I'm giving this one like an 8 out of 10 as well for me. Like I loved Bloodline, it was fun for me. And then you've got the sequel to this one, you've got Hellraiser Inferno, and the psychological thrillers really frustrated me and were very rough to watch. Just like even just seeing this poster now, and like I'm remembering the many face palms I had throughout the movie. Like for me, there's just not much to say with Hellraiser 5 Inferno. For me, it goes up there as like a D minus. Out of the psychological thrillers with this one, if this was a completely separate movie, could have been a good watch, but what they did with it, just frustrating to say the least for me. And then you've got the next one after that, Hellraiser 6 Hellseeker, where you bring back Kirsty to kill her off within the first 5 minutes, watching Trevor have dream sequence after dream sequence. This was so frustrating to watch, and for me this one is an F for me. Like I was so frustrated with like seeing Trevor just constantly waking up. His hell is seeing him having like a fantastic time with multiple different women, and just like Kirsty comes back at the end for the reveal and like Pinhead barely shows up. It's just frustrating for me. So with Hellraiser Hellseeker, it's an F. It's a just because Kirsty came back, I'm going to give this a 3 out of 10, but in terms of overall, it's such a bad movie. And same with the next one, because you've got the next one, Hellraiser Deader, and this one, once again, I'm putting it as an F. Just the excuse they use to bring Pinhead with this is that one of the Merchant bloodline is like trying to become the leader of the Cenobites, and just having this reporter have dream sequence after dream sequence. Pinhead shows up, you don't know if it's a real or fake, this psychological thriller. So Hellraiser 5, 6, 7, the psychological thrillers were so bad for me. So for me, at least with Hellraiser 5, this was separated from Hellraiser, would have been a good movie. But 6 and 7, even if it was not a Hellraiser movie, just a general movie in itself, I'm giving it an F. And so with Hellraiser 7, for me, it's going to be a 3 out of 10. And then you've got the next one on the list, the next movie there. You've got Hellraiser 8, Hellworld, starring Henry Cavill and many other people starring in it. And with me, they sort of take on like a video game aspect, a person that's not really Pinhead, but somebody else. So it's kind of like a twist reveal. It's a Hellraiser, which is not in a Hellraiser movie type thing. I had a fun time with this. I definitely think it's a step up, a huge step up compared to 5, 6, and 7. Fun watch, fun kills too. But for me, because of like the reveal, and they sort of like backtracked when it comes to like the two survivors, Hellraiser not really being associated to it, just sort of like a revenge type movie, and then Pinhead coming in at the end sort of held it back for me. So for me, Hellraiser 8, I'm putting this as like a C minus. Fun movie, entertaining movie, a step up compared to like the other ones that they produced, 5, 6, and 7. So for me, with Hellraiser 8, I'm giving this a 7.5 out of 10. And I know the next one to this, Hellraiser 9, is probably the worst of the worst for a lot of people's eyes. For me, it's not as bad as 6, 7, even 5. Even though it was shot very weirdly and its camera work was very bad, the shortest movie of the whole franchise, they kept to the lore, which is what I enjoyed. The characters were just kind of bland, but I liked Stephen and Nico's like keeping to the Hellraiser lore, finding victims so that Nico could come back, stealing Stephen's body and all that kind of stuff. But Pinhead, the way he looked, because Doug Bradley no longer reprises his role, the decisions that they made and the way they went with it, sort of was very bland for me. So for me, with Hellraiser 9, I'm giving this one a D. A lot better than, for me, 7 and 6, and slightly better than 5, but just a D minus, a 4 out of 5. Sorry, 4 out of 10 for me there. And then as we get to the final Hellraiser movie, Hellraiser original one, I mean, straight away this right off the bat is an A plus. This sequel still holds up today. The characters, Frank Cotton, Julia, Larry Cotton, Kirsty, Pinhead, the introduction to Pinhead, the opening sequences. This is such a fantastic movie. Like Child's Play 1, Halloween 1, Hellraiser 1, fantastic sequences, brilliant openings to like their franchises in itself. I loved what they did with Hellraiser, the original one, and I rewatch it so many times because it's got that rewatchable factor. So for me, Hellraiser, the original one, is an A plus for me. I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. And I have to honestly praise Doug Bradley for his performances in every single movie, whether it's bad or good. My favorite bit is like in Hellraiser 4, his confused look after seeing a hologram was just fantastic. But Doug Bradley, I have to give a shout out to him of like the performances he did. Similar with like Brad Dourif in like Charles Lee Ray, so fantastic. And the Michael Myers that plays it in the original Halloween and the one in 2018 onwards, brilliant actors and really fantastic with what they did with their characters there. And as we're coming to like a close here, where we've got Mr. Harrigan's phone, for me, I loved the concept with what they did with this movie. It's another Stephen King novel, and I love Stephen King's adaptations and like his books and the movies that are based on it. With this one, however, though, I just felt like the execution was poorly done. Like, I love the build up in the relationship between Mr. Harrigan and the this character, which I forgot the name of his character. I'm sorry about that, but they built a great dynamic. I love the concept with like the iPhone and that kind of like interpretation of it, but then the execution and sort of like you don't get enough of like what is perceived, because Mr. Harrigan's dead, he's calling from beyond the grave with the phone, but then you don't really get to explore that too much, and it's sort of like rushed towards the ending, and like for me the ending was a bit unsatisfactory for me. So for me and Mr. Harrigan's Phone, I'm giving this like a C+, a 7 out of 10. Fun movie, good to watch, but not Stephen King's best adaptation there. And the next one, I'm gonna leave She-Hulk to last, because there's a lot to say that. But for me, when it comes to like Spirit Halloween, I had a fun time with this movie. I just posted a video of that, and it was a fun movie. Marketing was very weird, the plot was pretty interesting, but for me, Christopher Lloyd's performances was brilliant in this. Like, I have to give praise to him, but they just didn't take advantage enough of the Spirit Halloween store. Like, they didn't use it to their advantage. It's a fun movie, a fun watch. For me though, I'm gonna have to give this one another C+. A lot better than the Curse of Bridge Hollow, because I watched these two movies back to back. Spirit Halloween is a lot better in terms of like the plot and the entertainment scale, but a little bit like the cast was okay and fun, but plot wise and rewatchable factor, not that great there. And for me, with the two Marvel projects, you got Werewolf by Night as like a Marvel special, 50-minute long. I had such a fun time. I was not expecting to like this as much as I did. I'm saying this now, for me, Werewolf by Night is up there as an A. I had a really fantastic time with this, and I wish it was slightly longer and you get to explore Werewolf and like the characters there. This was a fun watch, and this one is one I would highly recommend. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. Werewolf by Night is probably for me as like a 9 out of 10. Wish it was longer, but really fun to watch. And then for me with She-Hulk, last up on the list there, some of the episodes were hit and miss. The finale just really like off the wall crazy in terms of like the fourth wall breaking and that kind of stuff. The episodes were fun, like I didn't take it too serious. Jennifer Walters was a fun addition to the character and to the cast. I loved the cameos. Wong, Abomination, Daredevil. Like Daredevil's episode by far my favorite episode, but there was just a lot holding it back. I understand people's frustration. I know it didn't help the writers just like feeding into like the trolls in itself. So for me, I'm not going to break down too much into like my thoughts and opinions and all that kind of stuff on this, because I did it in the review. But for me, when it comes to like She-Hulk, I'm going to have to give this a C, because I liked the concept. I enjoyed the first episode. I enjoyed Daredevil's episodes. A couple of other episodes were pretty fun, but the courtroom scenes were just baffling in terms of the writing. Some of the side characters were just very hit and miss, and like the ending as well just really fell flat for me. So for me, when it comes to She-Hulk, this is going to be a C-. Overall altogether, I'm going to give this maybe a 6.5, 7 out of 10. Probably not my favorite one of the Disney Plus shows there. But this is like the overall list of the tier ranking for the month of October. I know it's a pretty long video, a lot to digest and a lot to get through, but thank you so much for the support and thank you so much for watching there. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, like button, hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any future videos there. This is the full list of the tier ranking there. Keep an eye out on the channel with lots more to come for the month of November. I'm going to be trying out different couple of things as well there, and will be a tier ranking too, so keep an eye out on that. But thank you so much for watching, thank you so much for listening. This is YK Reviews. Peace.